Viewers, even as Israel faces mounting criticism from world leaders over airstrikes in Qatar, the Netanyahu administration remains unperturbed. Israel has confirmed that it targeted Houthi military installations in Yemen's capital Sanna and the Al Jauf region. Tel Aviv claims that the strikes have hit Houthi military camps, the headquarters of the Houthi propaganda department and a fuel storage site. According to Yemen's health ministry, 9 people have been killed and over 100 injured in these attacks. As highlighted earlier, this attack cannot be seen in isolation. Over the past 2 years, Netanyahu has ordered airstrikes across multiple Middle Eastern nations. Let's take you through a list of countries that have recently been targeted by Israel. Now, this is Palestine that, of course, has been seeing since 2023 October the kind of fighting that has taken place, especially as far as the Gaza Strip is concerned. We saw in 2023 October also another front opening up with Lebanon, Syria later in 2024 December, and of course earlier this year in Iran, that is the 13th of June. Qatar, of course, being reported just yesterday, that is September 9th, and now Yemen, where the Houthis are, on the 10th of September. So if you can look at the entire area of the Middle East, Israel somewhere in that area, but all surrounding it, flashpoints that are emerging. Israel, for its own part, says it's just cracking down on terror. But what really is India's stand? India has taken a very balanced approach. It has expressed deep concern over these attacks. This is a social media post coming in from Prime Minister Modi, where he has not just expressed his concern, he has, of course, also condemned the kind of attack that has taken place on ground. It condemned the violation of Qatar's sovereignty, support the resolution via dialogue as well as diplomacy is what has been stated by the Prime Minister. Stand firmly is what has been said. It is also said that India is against terrorism in all its forms. Let's now take you across to an interview I had with the Israel ambassador to India earlier in the day. Listen in. Israel's strike in the heart of Doha has sent shockwaves across the international community. What really are we looking at in terms of Israel's justification for this kind of an action? To talk about that, I have with me Ambassador of Israel to India, Mr. Reuven Azar. Thank you so much, Mr. Azar, for joining us. First of all, let me begin by asking you, this is of course an extremely shocking development. It comes out of the blue. How does Israel justify, this attack on Qatar, particularly given that Qatar was part of the negotiation process, the discussion process?
This is not an attack on Qatar. This is a precision strike against the perpetrators of the massacre of the 7th of October, the most atrocious massacre against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. We took this action now because Hamas was stalling, because for 1 year we've been trying to get a diplomatic solution for this in order to retrieve the hostages and get a better future for Gaza. But Hamas is continuing with their attempt to stay in power in the Gaza Strip, and they are stalling time and again, saying yes, then saying no. Now, the Americans came with a new proposal. Israel said yes, they said no, and they perpetrated this terrible attack against us in Jerusalem, in which 6 innocent civilians were killed, 10 were injured, including a pregnant woman. This is a terrible development. I released a tweet on the morning of Operation Sindoor, and I said that terrorists cannot hide from the heinous crimes against the innocent. So when the United States attacked and killed Osama bin Laden, there was no condemnation. But when countries want to defend themselves against terrorists, suddenly there is condemnation. It is legal according to international law to attack terrorists, and you cannot harbor terrorists, and you cannot justify defending your sovereignty when you harbor terrorists. Now, we have used the mediation service of Qatar, but we have been tricked, Madhav. Because,
why do you say that?
Because, it's very evident that these people are trying to hold the stick from both sides. Instead of putting pressure on the terrorists to end this war, they are stalling, and they are creating a situation in which this war is getting prolonged. So sometimes you have to stop doing that and decide clearly on what and which side you are.
Right. But Prime Minister Netanyahu has come out to say that Israel takes full responsibility. If this was entirely Israel's decision, does this mean that your government has then deliberately chosen to bypass not only Qatar, but also your closest ally, the United States? And what are the implications then?
We didn't bypass the United States. The United States supports our right for self-defense. And actually, they are pretty happy that Hamas terrorists are dead, as they were very happy that we took out Hezbollah terrorists and that we took the proxies of Iran. So we can differ about one day or the other day what to do or what not to do, but we are in sync, and we are going to continue to work together in order to bring this war to an end. But people have to remember, we have only two goals that we have set forward on the 8th of October, after this atrocious attack. We want to bring back our hostages and make sure that Hamas cannot rearm and regroup in the Gaza Strip. And the Hamas leadership was refusing time and again to do it, despite our attempts to do this diplomatically.
Yeah, but you're saying the U.S. is fully backing you, but we've seen how U.S. has come out to say that they have warned Qatar in advance of the Israeli strike in Doha. Qatari leaders have come out to say, but that warning came only after the actual bombing had begun. If there was,
what did they tell you?
Yeah. So, but the question is this: that was there a notification to Qatar, and if so, what was the purpose of doing so?
Well, I'm not aware about the American notification of Qatar. I know that we usually, in such cases, sometimes we do notify our allies in advance. I'm not aware of the operational details here, but it's not the main point. The main point is that these terrorists, these perpetrators of the terrible massacre that celebrated, not only planned and perpetrated, they celebrated the killing of innocent people. These people are no longer with us. Hopefully, we'll see. We don't know the BDA yet of the bomb.
But the Qatari Prime Minister Al Thani has come out and called this an act of treachery, because many are saying that does this effectively then sabotage the peace talks that were happening?
Well, first of all, it didn't sabotage anything, because the Hamas were sabotaging the talks. And was it treacherous of the United States to kill Osama bin Laden in Pakistan? It's not treacherous. You're just using your right under international law to defend yourself.
So will there be more such attacks where you spot there are other Hamas terrorists in other jurisdictions? Because that could spark up a lot of complicated questions then.
Terrorists should know that there is no place they can hide from the heinous crimes against the innocent.
So they could continue. You're saying that Israel reserves the right to take similar action in the future?
Any country reserves the right to defend itself against terrorists.
Right. Now, we've seen the reaction come in from the EU. Ursula von der Leyen, who's the EU president, has announced plans for sanctions. They've also talked about a partial trade suspension against Israel over the Gaza war. How concerned are you that following this particular strike, if these sanctions are pushed forward, what could be the economic impact and fallout of this?
Such sanctions have to achieve European consensus. We have confidence that there are enough countries in Europe that understand what is the threat that Israel is under, and that are not going to play into the hands of those who want to undermine the right for self-defense, just to answer some political pressures that are coming from domestic constituencies that are radicalized across Europe.
Right. We've also seen Hamas come out to say that their leadership has survived. They've also added that family members and aides of Khalil al-Hayya were killed. Do you still believe that this particular strike was a strategic success in that sense?
We don't know yet.
You don't know what the actual casualties are?
We are waiting for the BDA, as I told you. We don't know at this point whether the strike was successful. We know that the strike was justifiable and right, but we don't know yet the results.
One of the other aspects of when you're talking about U.S. support is Washington coming out and saying that this was an attack on Doha that was unilateral, harmful to the peace efforts. We've also, of course, seen how President Trump emphasizing that this was Netanyahu's decision alone. So Israel then willing to act independently of U.S., even if it means sort of widening the tensions between allies. And in that sense, how do you view U.S.'s
Any
stance?
country has the right to act individually. And that's what President Trump was saying. It doesn't mean that we are not coordinated with the U.S. or that we will not cooperate with the U.S. to achieve a goal that is that we have an interest to achieve. Neither Israel nor the United States are going to agree for Hamas to stay in power in Gaza. And by the way, even the Arab League has stated that Hamas cannot stay in power in Gaza. The question is, who is going to do the job, Madhav? Are there any volunteers out there?
No, but the point is that US had just given the permission for its go-ahead as far as the negotiations are concerned. And with President Trump having personally, being part of that process, somewhere there is a feeling that when you start talking, and at that point of time when the bombing happens, that there is some kind of attempt at sabotaging. That's how the perception has been built around this episode.
Well, that's the perception that some people want to portray. But the real perception, or the reality is that Hamas has been stalling time and again to try to create a situation in which they survive as a power in the Gaza Strip, and Israel is pressurized by the international community to stop the operation. This is what they want to achieve, and therefore they were using and manipulating diplomacy and talks in order to achieve their goal. And therefore, you cannot do that again and again. We only 2 months ago had a deal on the table that was about to be signed, and Hamas started to put conditions. Here again, the United States put a proposal, Israel accepted, Hamas rebuked it. So enough is enough. Israel has to take action, this war has to end, and I'm sure that if this operation is successful, it will actually speed up the chances that the war will end sooner.
But it's not just the EU. There are many other countries in the Middle East itself which have come out to criticize the Israeli action. We've seen Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, Turkey, almost every Arab state that has condemned the strike. Do you fear that this action may, reunite the Arab world against Israel?
No.
That's not going to happen. Because otherwise, the countries such as UAE, etc., which are not considered to be countries which in any way, harbor these kind of extremists, with them also taking such a strong stand, isn't that a change in position?
I'll tell you why I said no, Madam. Because this is a hypocritical game. There's a lot of hypocrisy here. Everybody knows the game that Qatar is playing. How they are supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. How, on the one hand, they're enjoying the safety of the biggest American base in the Middle East that is protecting them, but on the other hand, they are investing billions of dollars in propagating hate, jihad, and extremism all around the world, including in the Middle East, including in the West, including in Asia, everywhere. So when you play this double game, sometimes you have to take into account the people are not going to buy it. And we certainly don't buy it when they are cooperating with Hamas to stall time and create a situation that they stay in power in the Gaza Strip.
What about the threat coming in from Yemen's Houthis, who've come out to say that there will be other attacks taking place in other capitals apart from Doha? They're also saying that it's in the context of Gaza. We've seen Hezbollah in Lebanon and Houthis in Yemen and Iranian-backed militia as well. So the question that many are asking is that is Israel somehow prepared for a region-wide escalation if that so happens?
On the contrary, Madhav, we actually, through our actions, have created a situation in which we have created de-escalation. Because if you remember, on the 7th of October, we were attacked by Hamas. On the 8th of October, we were attacked from 7 fronts. And we had to retaliate, and we retaliated in a way that was decisive at the moment that we chose, and actually created a situation in which you have now stability in Lebanon, you have a different political setup in Syria, you have the Iranians cooperating with the IAEA. They had a chance to cooperate with the IAEA for years. They cheated the international community. They undermined the safeguards agreement they have signed. And now suddenly, following the action of Israel, it didn't create conflagration in the region, it created a situation in which Iran is coming back to the table. It means that the actions that Israel took were not only responsible and precise, they were necessary to achieve stability in the region.
Now we've seen how it's going to be close to 2 years since October 2023, since the fighting actually began. Over 64,000 people, I believe, have been killed. We've seen how, in fact, authorities in Gaza have come out to say that there is a famine that has been declared in Gaza city as well. And there are critics who are saying that it's Israel's military operations that have created one of the worst humanitarian disasters of our time. How do you respond to these international calls calling for you to call off the military operation?
Well, these calls are absolutely exaggerated. We know very well that although the Palestinian people are suffering a lot, as well as Israelis suffered, we know very well what Israel did in order to provide relief to them. We facilitated more than 2 million tons of food into the Gaza Strip. In the history of conflict, nobody ever done that. Okay? Despite these fake reports by Hamas and other organizations cooperating with them that fabricated the criteria in order to determine that there is a policy of starvation, that is a lie. There has been hunger here and there, but actually Israel made sure that food gets into the Gaza Strip. The problem was with Hamas that sequestrated the food. The problem is with Hamas that wants to continue this war in order to survive in the Gaza Strip, although they were defeated. This war could end last year. And believe me, Madhav, unfortunately, there are humanitarian situations that are far much worse around the world, like in Sudan and in other places. But somehow, people are concentrated on Gaza because they have a political agenda. So if they want this war to end, the only thing they have to do is to put pressure on Hamas to surrender power in the Gaza Strip. Nobody is interested in Hamas staying in power, even not the Arab League. And if we want to achieve this goal, it's about time to put pressure on the terrorists and not on Israel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Azar, for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now. Thank you.